Ladies and gentlemen, I want to talk about something that weighs heavy on the heart yet liberates the soul: letting go. Not the easy kind, like setting down a heavy grocery bag. No, I mean the kind that twists your gut, makes your chest feel tight, and convinces your mind that holding on is the only way to survive. The kind of letting go that comes when we must emotionally detach from someone who is no longer meant to be in our story. There's a common misconception that emotional detachment means shutting off your feelings, becoming indifferent, or pretending that something doesn't hurt. But that's not detachment. That's suppression, and anything you suppress will find its way back to you, whether through anxiety, overthinking, or an unexplainable heaviness in your soul. True detachment begins when you understand that emotions are not your enemy, they are your messengers. Think about it. Emotions rise for a reason. Pain shows up because something needs to heal. Longing lingers because something remains unaddressed. And love, even when it's misplaced, reminds you of your capacity to feel deeply. But here's the thing. Emotions should never be the ones holding the pen to your story. They are part of the journey, but they don't get to decide the destination. Too often we let our emotions dictate our actions. We stay in situations that drain us because our feelings tell us there's still hope. We chase after people who have already walked away because our hearts refuse to accept the silence. But if there's one truth that will set you free, it is this: you can honor your emotions without being controlled by them. The key is awareness. When a wave of emotion rises, don't react, observe. Instead of drowning in the feeling, ask yourself, why is this showing up? What is this trying to teach me? The moment you stop resisting and start listening, you reclaim your power. Because emotions only control you when you don't understand them. And here's the most powerful shift. You don't have to stop loving someone to let them go. Love can exist without attachment. You can still care for them, still wish them well, but you don't have to hold on to them at the cost of yourself. Letting go doesn't mean forgetting. It means freeing yourself from the weight of what no longer serves you. The strongest people aren't the ones who feel nothing. They are the ones who feel everything, yet choose not to be ruled by it. Because when you master your emotions instead of being mastered by them, you don't just move on, you rise. You step into a version of yourself that isn't controlled by pain but fueled by purpose. And that right there is the kind of detachment that leads to true freedom. We grow up believing that closure is something another person gives us, like a final conversation, an apology, or an explanation that makes everything make sense. But life is rarely that neat. More often than not, the people who hurt us move on without giving us the answers we crave. They leave behind silence where we expected words, confusion where we hoped for clarity, and in that space of uncertainty, we convince ourselves that we cannot heal until we get the closure we are waiting for. But what if closure isn't something you receive? What if it's something you create? Because the truth is, waiting for someone else to give you peace is like standing in the rain and hoping the clouds will ask for forgiveness. The storm will pass when you decide to step inside, not when it decides to stop. Closure is not about getting the perfect ending. It's about deciding that the story doesn't get to keep you stuck anymore. It's about understanding that even if you never hear the words you wanted, even if you never understand why they did what they did, you still get to move forward. because your healing is not dependent on their accountability. It is dependent on your choice to let go of the narrative that is holding you back. There's a moment in every heartbreak where you realize that no explanation will ever be enough. Even if they told you exactly what you wanted to hear, would it really change what happened? Would it erase the pain? Or would it just be another reason to hold on a little longer? The mind tricks us into believing that closure is about answers, but real closure is about acceptance. It's looking at the situation and saying, this is what it is, this is what it was, and I refuse to let it define what comes next. You don't need an apology to move on. You don't need their validation to know your worth. You don't need a perfect goodbye to start a new beginning. The closure you seek is already within you. It is found in the moment you decide that your peace is worth more than their presence, that your story deserves to continue without waiting for someone else to give it permission. Because at the end of the day, the strongest closure isn't something spoken, it's something felt. It's when you wake up one day and realize that the weight is gone, that you no longer need answers, that your absence no longer feels like a wound but like space. It's beautiful open space for something better to come. There's a certain kind of pain that doesn't just live in the heart. It lingers in habits, in patterns, in the small rituals we refuse to break. Emotional attachment isn't just about missing someone, it's about the way we keep them alive in our daily lives even when they are no longer there. It's the late night scrolling through old messages, the songs we replay because they remind us of a time we're afraid to let go of, the moments when we convince ourselves that maybe, just maybe they'll come back. But here's the truth, you cannot heal if you keep reopening the wound. Every time you check on them, every time you replay the past, every time you keep the door slightly open, you are choosing to stay trapped in a cycle that is no longer meant for you. Healing requires distance, and distance isn't just physical. It's emotional, mental, and digital. It's breaking the habits that tie you to a past version of yourself that you have outgrown. Detachment isn't about forgetting, it's about choosing yourself over a version of love that only exists in memories. It's realizing that holding on doesn't bring someone back. It only keeps you stuck. And the longer you hold on to the idea of what could have been, the less space you have for what is meant to be. There is a moment when you have to decide that your peace matters more than your attachment, that looking forward is more important than looking back, that your life deserves to be lived in the present, not trapped in the past. It's not easy, it will take discipline, it will require you to remind yourself again and again why you are choosing to let go. But one day, the weight will lift, the habits will break, and you will realize that distance wasn't about losing them. It was about finding yourself again. We don't just hold on to people, we hold on to the stories we've created about them. We tell ourselves they were the one, that they completed us, that without them, life loses its meaning. We replay the best moments, romanticizing the laughter, the connection, the dreams we built in our minds. And because of this, letting go doesn't feel like just losing a person. It feels like losing a piece of our identity. But what if the story isn't true? What if the version of them you've held on to isn't who they really were, but who you needed them to be? What if they weren't your forever, but just a chapter that taught you something valuable? The moment you shift your perspective, everything changes. Instead of seeing them as a loss, you start to see them as a lesson. Instead of believing they were your only chance at happiness, you realize they were just one stop on your journey, not the final destination. It's easy to convince ourselves that what we lost was perfect, but if it was meant for you, it would have stayed. If it was healthy, it wouldn't have left you questioning your worth. And if it was truly love, it wouldn't have required you to lose yourself in the process. Real love doesn't chain you to the past, it sets you free. You have the power to rewrite the meaning of this experience. You can decide that this wasn't rejection, it was redirection. That this wasn't abandonment, it was life making space for something better. The story you tell yourself about this ending will determine how you move forward. Will you let it break you, or will you let it push you toward growth? Because here's the truth: the past only holds power over you if you let it. The version of them you keep replaying in your mind is not your future. Your future is still unwritten, still waiting for you to turn the page. And when you finally do, you'll realize that the real love story was never about them. It was always about you finding your way back to yourself. Letting go isn't about shutting your heart down. It's not about turning cold or pretending you don't care. It's about understanding that love should never come at the cost of your peace. Somewhere along the way, we were taught that holding on is a sign of strength, that if we love someone deeply, we should fight for them, wait for them, prove ourselves to them. But real strength isn't found in clinging to something that no longer serves you. Real strength is knowing when to walk away. There is a difference between love and attachment. Love is expansive. It allows you to grow, to breathe, to evolve. Attachment, on the other hand, is constricting. It keeps you in a cycle of dependency, making you believe that your happiness is tied to someone else's presence. But the most powerful realization you will ever have is this: you don't need to suffer to prove your love, and you don't need to stay in emotional turmoil to keep a connection alive. Detaching with love means releasing someone not out of bitterness, not with resentment, but with gratitude for the lessons they brought into your life. It means recognizing that some people are not meant to stay forever, and that's okay. Not everyone is meant to walk the entire journey with you. Some are just meant to show you a part of yourself that you needed to see. Some come into your life to teach you how to love, and others come to teach you how to let go. The hardest truth to accept is that sometimes love is not enough. Sometimes, no matter how much you give, no matter how deeply you care, the connection is no longer meant to continue. And in those moments, you have a choice. You can hold on and lose yourself, or you can let go and reclaim your peace. Choosing yourself is not selfish. Prioritizing your well-being is not giving up. It is an act of self-respect, an act of self-love. Because at the end of the day, the love that will sustain you, the love that will truly heal you, is the love you give to yourself. And when you finally detach with love, when you release them with grace instead of anger, you are not losing. You are setting yourself free. There is a version of you that existed before them, the one who laughed without hesitation, dreamed without fear, and carried a lightness in their heart. But somewhere along the way, in loving them, you started losing pieces of yourself. You made their happiness your priority, their needs your responsibility, their presence your comfort. And when they left, or when you had to let them go, it felt as if you were standing in the ruins of something you once built with love. But here's what no one tells you: detachment isn't just about releasing them, it's about finding yourself again. It's about looking in the mirror and recognizing the person staring back at you, not as someone who was abandoned, not as someone who failed, but as someone who is rediscovering their own power. The love you gave them, the patience, the kindness, the effort, was never wasted. It was proof of your capacity to love deeply. And now it's time to turn that love inward. Reconnect with the dreams you put on hold. Revisit the things that made you feel alive before they became your world. What were the passions you left behind, the ambitions you watered down, the parts of yourself that you sacrificed in the name of love? They are still there, waiting for you to return. The truth is, the love you thought you lost doesn't need to be reclaimed within you. There is a kind of beauty in rebuilding yourself after loss. It is in the way you start choosing yourself again, in the way you begin to walk with confidence, in the way your heart starts feeling lighter when you finally realize that you never needed them to be whole. Healing doesn't happen in a day, and it won't always be easy. But every small step you take back toward yourself is proof that you are moving in the right direction. You are not empty without them. You are not broken. You are simply in the process of remembering who you were before the world told you that you needed someone else to complete you. And when you fully step into that space of self-love, when you realize that your happiness was never meant to be dependent on another person, that is when you truly detach, not just from them, but from the version of yourself that believed you couldn't live without them. Letting go always feels like loss at first. The empty space where they once existed can feel overwhelming, like a silence too loud to bear. But what if that space is an emptiness? What if it's an opening? An invitation for something greater, something deeper, something more aligned with who you are becoming. We often think of detachment as a painful ending, but in reality, it's a powerful beginning. It's the moment you stop holding on to something that wasn't meant to last and start making room for what is truly meant for you, the relationships that leave you questioning your worth, the people who make you feel like you have to fight for their attention, the love that comes with conditions. These are not the things that are meant to stay. They are lessons, catalysts for your growth, but they are not your forever. When you let go of what no longer serves you, you create space for what does, space for peace, space for self-discovery, space for relationships that don't require you to shrink yourself just to be loved. Imagine what could enter your life if you weren't clinging to what has already left. Imagine the kind of love that doesn't make you second guess yourself. Imagine the kind of happiness that isn't tied to someone else's presence but rooted in your own self-worth. The most beautiful part of detaching isn't what you lose, it's what you gain. You gain clarity, realizing that not everything you wanted was meant for you. You gain strength, understanding that you are capable of standing on your own. You gain wisdom, learning that love should never require you to abandon yourself. And above all, you gain freedom, the kind that allows you to move forward without fear, without regret, and without the weight of the past holding you down. So let them go. Let go of the version of the story where they stay. Let go of the illusion that they were the only source of love you would ever know, because beyond this chapter, beyond this ending, is something waiting for you. And when you finally make space for it, you will wonder why you ever fought so hard to hold on to something that was always meant to leave. Letting go is never easy. The heart, no matter how much it has been hurt, always finds reasons to hold on. Memories, what ifs, hopes for a different ending. But there comes a moment when you have to ask yourself, am I holding on to them, or am I holding on to the idea of them? Am I staying attached because they are truly meant for me, or because I am afraid of what life looks like without them? And when you answer that honestly, you begin to see that emotional detachment is not about erasing love. It's about reclaiming yourself. Pain is not proof of love. Longing is not proof of love. The strongest love is the one that allows you to walk away when staying means losing yourself. Detachment is not about forgetting someone ever existed. It's about accepting that their role in your story has ended. It's about understanding that your worth is not tied to their presence and that your happiness was never meant to be dependent on their validation. You are allowed to outgrow connections that once felt like home. You are allowed to wake up one day and decide that you no longer want to carry the weight of someone who does not choose to stay. You are allowed to choose peace over chaos, clarity over confusion, self-respect over longing. Detachment is not bitterness, it is not an act of cruelty, it is the quiet realization that you deserve more than a love that leaves you questioning yourself. Life has a way of bringing us exactly what we need, even if at first it doesn't look like what we wanted. Some people come into our lives to teach us how to love, while others come to teach us how to let go. And sometimes the greatest act of love you can show yourself is walking away, not because you stopped caring, but because you finally started caring about yourself. One day you will look back and understand why things unfolded the way they did. You will see that every ending was a redirection, every loss a lesson, every goodbye a step towards something greater. And when that day comes, you won't feel pain, you will feel gratitude. Gratitude for the love you gave, for the strength you found, for the person you became in the process. Because detaching from someone isn't just about letting them go, it's about setting yourself free.